Today's guest is someone who has spent more than 15 years fighting to improve the lives of single mothers around Australia. Terese Edwards is the CEO of Single Mother Families Australia and has been at the forefront of some of the biggest policy changes affecting single parents, including advocating for the restoration of the parenting payment, the ending of Parents Next program, and now reforms to Australia's child support system. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest and most emotionally charged issues affecting separated families, child support. We'll unpack what the research is telling us, why so many women are falling through the cracks, the recent government reforms, and why this conversation is so much more than just money. It's about children's well-being. Thanks so much for joining me, Terese.
It's fantastic to be here and to be able to talk about child support. Thank you.
I want to start with a question. I think lots of people probably see the end result, you having these conversations with ministers and government generals, but they don't see the work that goes into this, the hours that you give up, the sacrifices that you probably make, the time that you put in. And I think to do that, you've got to have a pretty big why. What is your why for doing this work?
Yeah, so when I became a single mum, my little boy was 2 and I was in an executive job. I had a really good pay, I had my own home, we had a good home. And at no point in time was I ever worried about my little boy not having food. We were making some tough decisions, like childcare was super expensive then. And I was also going into court and I was just thinking, if I'm finding this hard, how do women that were not in the paid workforce or had secure jobs or had a family around, how were they managing it? And concurrently, I was on the board of the Australian Council of Social Services, and the folk who were before me, they were also on the board, and I was listening to what I can only describe as stories that just hurt my heart. They went deep into my soul. And so I took a risk. I left a really good, well-paying, stable job to go into a job where it is like the pay's really bad. The hours are ridiculously long. Sometimes I don't know if we're going to get funded. Our funding contract runs out. But where do you find a job where your heart matches your soul? And so that's why I did it. And I look back on all the mistakes I made at the start and I've just gone, lessons learned, and then kept going along. And then those wins that you were just talking about before, I still feel them. Every time anyone talks about those wins, I feel them because I know what they mean for women.
I think over the years you've contributed and released a number of your own surveys and reports, and then obviously most recently the Australian government has released its own survey. I think even though they're very different pieces of work, it seems that they have a very consistent theme. What is the big picture that these reports and surveys are telling us?
Absolutely, and in that was the Commonwealth Ombudsman's report. They're all the same. They're echoing each other. They're just saying the system has been really flawed, really harmful and really shitty for many people, but mostly for the mums and kids who are actually quite compelled to take out child support. So we've had a system, like often when you think of government systems, you think, oh, they might be a bit clunky around the edges, but you never think that if you go into that system, that you would be harmed by that system. And the child support is one of those systems that can be weaponised. And that was the title of our report in 2023. And it's also the title of the Ombudsman's report. And, they're an independent regulatory body, not known for flair.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so that means that they're set up by the government, but they're not beholden to the government. They're independent and they look at government bodies and institutions. So one of the groups that they have courage to look at is Services Australia, or what many of us call Centrelink, and child support sits within that space.
Yeah. You just touch on weaponisation. I think there are many women that are leaving relationships, and I think we assume child support just means money. Someone doesn't want to give their money. And I think we realise, and we can see through these reports, that it's much deeper than that, and that maybe oftentimes it's connected to power and sort of bigger forces. I think many women are leaving relationships because of financial abuse. That might be a small part of it, and hope that leaving that relationship means the ending of that. And yet what we know and hear is that that's not the case. It continues, it carries on, and it just kind of changes shape. What do you see in your work? How are these conversations had in your communities?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So one of our reports, the financial abuse, the weaponisation of child support, we released that in 2023. And when I say our reports, they're in collaboration with Swinburne University. So they've got all of that university and institutional sort of ethics and robustness. The 80% of the 500 women who took part in that survey who had experienced some form of abuse, their partner, used child support to continue that abuse. It was really easy for them to do it. And on top of mind issues, when women are thinking about separating, they're thinking about safety, they're thinking about their kids, they're thinking about their friends, their family, all of these top issues, like will they have a roof over their head? Are the kids going to go to the same school? Will they be able to share and co-parenting? What does all of this mean? And child support seems to slip down the edge because it seems so simple. Like it seems so simple. It's like one person transferring the money to the other under a set formula and through an agency. And it's only when they start to then step into that system that the complexity of it starts to come to the fore. And so there's so many junctures in that road where women can make a wrong turn, even if it's through lack of information or they've sort of been pushed or coerced or believe it's better to go another way. And it can be years and years and years before there's even some sort of awareness. So we really see that power and control. And, money is power. And if it's used for nefarious reasons, it can have a really big sting. And so that's what comes through in all of those reports. We've not found a report that's counterintuitive to what our findings have been.
You said some wrong turns that women can make. What are some of those wrong turns?
Sure. First up, I will try and answer this really simple because it is complicated. Yeah. So in Australia, we're an outlier how we have our system. And what we say to women, if you want to access all of your family tax benefits, which sits within Social Security, which is part of our safety net, where women apply through Centrelink, you actually must take out a child support agreement. So they are interlinked. There are women who do not know that. They still see it as separate money. And so within that, some women might go, look, I'm not going to get any money. I know he's going to, do all the things to minimize his income. It's just not worth it. So I won't even go into that system. That's the first wrong turn because then their family tax benefits are reduced and they're reduced by 70%. So we're talking about big reductions and they may not know it. The rules and the language that the system uses is that you failed that test. So women fail that test not even knowing it is a test, and that's the official language. And then they go, oh my God, this is so complicated. I will sort child support at the end of the school term when we're standing on solid ground. Bang, that's the second test because you've got to apply within 13 weeks. Otherwise, then you start to lose money. And up until the very recent changes that were announced in the federal budget in 2026, in May of 26, what was also expected was that there are two types of agreement that operate underneath the government's responsibility. One is called an agency collect, one's called private. The same formula works out the same amount, but in private, the government steps away and says, you two, parents, you can sort it out. Agency is where they actually do the collection. So it doesn't mean a different sort of money. It just means who transfers it. And so women have been pushed by the department themselves, often coerced by their ex-partner to take that on, and it can be solved for a whole lot of things like, oh, we don't need the hassle of all the systems, we'll just do it ourselves. Or women go, this will keep the peace. There will be less violence, less abuse. I'll be able to protect my child from any particular fallout if he is really angry about this. And so they go into private collect, not knowing that that is just a vessel of harm that sits in that private collect, and the rules aren't known. So with private collect, first of all, the government doesn't keep any statistics on that, so they don't.
Right.
They won't.
So they've got no idea what's going on.
No idea. So when we talk about the child support debt of 1.9 billion,
So that it doesn't even count.
doesn't count.
Wow.
That doesn't count.
What
And
percentage of people private collect to agency?
it's always been a little bit more than 50%. It's come
Wow.
down a little bit. It's sat for around 54%. Most new agreements started, so like 65% of new agreements start in private collect. And at some point, there's a change. And just knowing the rules. So if you're entitled to receive child support, and it is really gendered, and that just reflects who's got the most money, who's doing most care. Women don't know that they can actually unilaterally move from private collect to agency collect. So there is that option. Do they know it? No. Will they do it even if they know it? Not if there's conflict. And then this is where there's two real stings in the tail. One of them is if they move, and irrespective of all of the records, because, cash is not so much transferred. We've got records of transfers. The most that she will be able to collect is 3 months of her debt, irrespective if she's been in that system for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So she's completely dudded. And then when I was talking about that interaction, what does happen, family benefits gets reduced. The more child support you get, there's again this sort of formula, but in private collect, it gets reduced on assumed amounts. So
so they assume that you're getting it. Centrelink assumes if you're privately collect that they get it.
That's it. So we have been...
Sorry, can that be, because I often have women say that something balances at the end of the year and then they owe money. Is that connected to that because Centrelink assumes they've been paid?
No, that's another nasty.
Okay.
We got more to go.
Okay.
We got more to go. And that's why this is such a good conversation, because unless you're in the sort of weeds, you don't know. So when we start to get the government's ear, it is every point is a point of celebration. And we have been doing big reports year after year after year. Like every year we've been doing reports just to try and say, this is not working, this is not working, this is not working. It has taken so many women's voices, so much energy, creativity, using the straight bat of research, speaking in the media, just to open the child support door. We've just got the door open.
Why do you think it's so hard? Because isn't it obvious? Isn't it obvious?
I know. I think about this a lot, and it really has been part of my brain matter for a long time.
Consumes
why?
you. Yeah.
You know, the big why, and I really think it just goes back. So I've traced the history of child support when it started in Australia. In fact, I did my PhD on it, and
Wow.
I've just handed it up and got the pass mark in March. But I really think it goes back. Every pointer goes back to Australia's acceptance of single mums doing it tough. Like we hear of a single mum and we have thoughts of, no, she won't have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
She's probably quite okay working 150 hours a week. That's okay. That's what she does. She'll do all the emotional work and labour.
It's just expected.
Yep, and she'll just make it happen. We don't know how or why, but she'll just make it happen. And so we have a system where we revere the breadwinner, anyone who's outside of the support system. But once you start touching that support system, we really do need to change our thinking around single mums. And I think it's one of my most favourite thing is when I see particularly really bolshy young women that are single mums stepping out in their spot and claiming it. I love it. But until we do that, we allow for really systems that we've normalised horror.
Yeah.
And this is one of them.
Yeah. I'm going to read you out some numbers, and they're not going to be new for you.
Yes.
But they might be new for some people that don't know much about it. So just a few of them. I did a post this week. Owed over $50,000, $20,000, $18,000. They're not isolated responses. There's pages and pages of women saying that they're owed thousands and thousands of dollars. Some receive $10 a week.
Yep.
Some get $10 a month. Some get nothing at all.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, while getting these minuscule, embarrassing amounts, their ex-partners claim to have no income. They live in maybe $1 million properties. They might own luxury cars. They might be travelling the world. What does this tell you about what on earth is happening in the child support system?
So the child support system did a really bad deed to it. So we're catching up. So if I can just give you this background, and I will go to those numbers because they should be really paralysing for anyone who's just tuning in for the first time. And for the women who are managing that, I just want to say I really do hear you. So we made a decision, a deliberate policy decision in 2006, 2007 and 2008. And then we just shut the door and let it keep going. And at that point in time, the powers in government were very much conservative. There was a really strong men's lobby group. Everything that we disliked about policies, like there was no looking at unpaid care, there was no looking at valuing those who were doing it. There was just no looking at anything. It was just shunted under the table. And we purposely reduced child support. And the rationale was that if we made it fairer, which meant that we reduced it for the person paying it, they might be more likely to pay some. All we did is reduced it and created more debts. So then
it didn't change. They were
no.
Offered some leniency and
Rach, we almost gave them permission to say, just go as dirty as what you want.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen. So back to those really horrible figures that you were talking about. 25% of child support is $10 or less per week. And
women going wild spending that $10 a week.
and 58%, over half, 58% is $100 per week. Just think of what a pair of school kids' shoes is.
Yeah.
When you go, $100, you used to be able to get a few groceries and maybe, get your car with some petrol. No, reverse that just doesn't happen anymore.
Anyone that has children can hear that and think it's outrageous. There are ex-partners that are quite happy to let these women drown in their finances, emotionally, mentally. Their children suffer as a result, and yet we're expected to just put on a happy face and front up and be the bigger person, and off you go. And I don't agree that you should withhold children in that dynamic, but it puts women in a very tough position where we're not allowed to say anything and we just have to do the right thing.
Yeah, well, when we talk about money anyway, when we look at some of the sort of stymie labels, so, gold diggers are typically thrown at women, women who do all of the hard work behind the scenes. And child support has a really, there's always been some sort of myth associated with child support that is not borne out in the facts. So those figures are real. They're not mine. They're the government's, they're the ombudsman. But we do have this belief that just keeps peppering and growing away that it's a crazy, ridiculous amount of money and she's just living off that.
Yeah.
Not true. I know I'm giving you just the broad strokes, and at each end there will be something different. But in terms of intent, I think I know one of the really illustrating points is that there is this system, we call it a DPO. It stands for the Departure Prohibition Order, which means that if you have a debt of child support, you can be stopped at the airport. The government, again, in that recent sort of very new changes that are still get bedded down but happen, that were announced, they're really leaning into that because it's working. They're finding that blokes, when they get to the airport, they can pay that money on the spot.
Wow.
So we're not talking about men who can't pay. They just don't want to pay, and they're not paying it until they are absolutely forced to. So that DPO has just grown a few more teeth. It's still to come into play, but why the government is leaning into it, it is one of the most successful ways of getting the child support debt. So we're talking that there is real intent.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because obviously during the World Cup, I was reading everything about Argentina, was it?
Argentina.
And because I imagine that, I think of everything that would really enforce someone to step up. It's if it genuinely impacted their life, and it seems like there is zero impact whatsoever on their life. So why on earth would they do anything? And yet they can't go to the World Cup, and that's the love of their life. They're going to make a different choice, aren't they?
Yes.
Is there anywhere in the world, are we modelling off something? Is there anywhere that is doing it great?
There's a few places that are doing it great. When the Australian child support system came in 1988, it was a world leader.
Wow.
And the people who were the architects of it actually travelled overseas a lot to learn and to share information. We've really gone backwards. And so when I talk about that period in 2006 to 2008, I'm talking about a sharp detour. But in some of our Scandinavian countries, there is this system called a child support guarantee, which is where the government still works out the formula and they will say, well, this is how much you should be getting. We as a government, with all of our might and levers and resources, we will pay you that money and then we will collect it off him.
Yes, so they're going to chase hard.
They chase much harder.
Yes.
Much harder.
Because they need their money back.
Yeah, for sure. And he's more likely to pay
100%.
too, because the debt's to the government rather than to her.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's funny, one of the themes that I always get is I get chased for months about not paying a little parking fine. I get chased harder for these things than these people do to support their children.
Yes. Well, women can't obfuscate their responsibilities, because if they don't lodge their tax return, if they don't put in up-to-date working what their employment is, they miss out. They don't get any sort of childcare assistance. They can have their family tax benefit. So there's all, because you are the carer, you interface with all those systems, and those systems will only respond to you if you uphold your rules. But if you're out of those systems, there's a bit of that, you've got that leeway.
Mm-hmm. So what is it that they do well when we're talking about the Scandinavian? Like, obviously it's that they get the money and they chase. Are there other restrictions?
Yeah, I think the other thing that they've got in spades over us, and Australia, we have one of the most very stereotyped sort of gendered roles.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Scandinavian countries, you'll have more men doing childcare. It's more valued. It's viewed as a resource. Putting in, like, looking after and nurturing and raising great kids is actually looking at part of being the productivity great for the nation. So there's a completely different culture. So it wasn't seen as radical to do this other part. So we still have, mostly it's 85% of women who are entitled to receive child support. So when I speak, I do speak in gendered tones. Of course, that makes sense being from Single Mother Families Australia, but that's also the system.
Or is it the numbers also, it says what it says?
Yeah, for sure.
What are the states like? Because I had a PT for a long time, and I had no idea until I got a random DM from someone that happened to be his ex-partner, and she'd basically just tried to contact anyone that he was connected with, and I had no idea that he had 3 children in the States and he'd fled the country to avoid. Do they have more rules, and is that why he would have been fleeing the country? Like, what is it like in the States?
The States is even more confusing than us. So there's 2 bits to the States. First of all, in Australia, we have it as a federal, so it's national.
Mm-hmm.
In America, each state does their own way, but they are fierce. They are absolutely fierce there. So there are penalties. Mm-hmm. So a child support debt there is a loss of license.
Great.
And the other thing, this really might grind your gears, this still bugs me, is in the States, at least it goes on his credit rating.
Credit rating. Great.
Credit rating. So in Australia, this is just this part.
Yeah, well, they can't pay a debt.
Well, it doesn't form a credit rating here. Mm-hmm. So what happens with women, they will go into one of the big 4 banks, mm-hmm. and they will show what their child support payment should be. Mm-hmm. And most banks ignore that, mm-hmm. because they see it as unreliable. So you might have that piece of paper. Also, the other group that often see it as unreliable, real estate agents. So you're renting. Yeah. You might have a piece of paper saying, look, you should be getting mm-hmm. $300 a week. No, we're not taking that. He can gleefully go into the bank, irrespective of his debt, and it will make no iota to any products, because it's not part of his credit ratings.
Which, particularly when the reason that they're saying is that they can't afford to pay child support, and yet they can go and get a loan or a mortgage. It doesn't make any sense.
Makes no sense. So I did put that in a while ago. We had a Banking Royal Commission. I did put it in there because if we were looking, the Banking Royal Commission was underpinned by transparency and information. So you would think that if that mm-hmm. was the case, it would be one of the issues. So just putting it on your credit rating, like what other bill or liability do you have that if you completely did not pay the amount when you felt like it,
there's no consequence?
None.
It's just nuts.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I really appreciated about the government survey was the acknowledgement of the reality of separation. So obviously and we've talked about this before, women leaving, they're navigating finances, maybe moving home, trying to find lawyers, dealing with the emotional repercussions with their children. And then they're also expected to navigate one of the most complex systems in Australia. Do you think the system has been designed with that in mind? Do you think it's been factored in?
No. Just even women, great connectors. Typically, because we've got women who will hear this who will be feeling very isolated, but typically women will talk to other women and they will find things out, because trying to understand child support from the government's website is just an exercise.
Well, Centrelink, that just makes me laugh. Like,
oh, jeez. So when I'm a complete policy nerd and I get so excited. One of my best evenings is the federal budget lockup, so please forgive me for that. But when I read policy and what's happening, etc., and I think, oh, great, they're going to do an education campaign. And normally I pull out my hair and go, can you just put the money straight into where it works? However, child support is so different. We know that they're putting money aside to actually design the information, at least for those who have to use the system. And we're at Single Mother Families Australia, we put our hand up and said, we really want to work with you. And of course, we'll go to some women. You know, if you want the system to be clear, just give it to a couple of single mums who are navigating it. So simple. But child support, I don't understand. I know when it happened, but I don't understand why our child support system in Australia has two complicated pieces, and then we go, let's further make it completely impossible for anyone to understand by connecting them together.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? If you were designing it, you would not do that. Australia has a beautiful multicultural spirit, and there's all these people that will go, well, what do you mean that I have to take child? Isn't child support like a private relationship? So then isn't the government? So why? So it does not make sense at all. It is driven a lot by keeping the money down. So Australia used to stand up on the national stage, and part of our system is we're really great. We don't take any money that is getting transferred, because New Zealand did. They had a percentage. The UK did. They had a percentage.
As in they took
some money.
Okay.
Yeah, they would say, we'll take 2% or we'll take...
Of a child support payment?
Yes.
For what purpose?
But what would happen is, of course, Australia is taking money, but they hide how they do it. So they take it out of the family payments. So not only is it designed really difficult, it's quite hidden. So some of the work that we've been doing, like when we launched our fixed child support campaign, and we had the social media tiles, and we went into Parliament House with a fantastic group of women in our room. And we had a couple of really cool presenters with us. Our guest speakers was Jess Hill and Rosie Batty. When I was and this was in 2024, at the end of 2024, I was posting stuff about that, and women are saying, so is that why? Is that I'm losing money? Yes. How much money? A lot. Yeah. Actually, a lot. You're losing a lot. So the rule is for $2,000 per year. If you get $2,000 per year, you start to lose 50% of every dollar in your family payments. For $2,000 per year. It's the steepest threshold we have in Australia. There is nothing that fierce. That's the fiercest amount we have, and we lose at 50% in the dollar. So yes, so we hid it for a long time, and then people came along that started to, when something starts to smell, and then you start to, unpack, that's when the real, I suppose, the horror of it
You see it.
Yes.
Or even just you got to apply for child support 13 weeks after separation. I mean, how would people have a clue?
No.
Like, when do they get told that?
No.
So,
No.
what are people meant to do? And also, we were just talking about, it's the most, these women are in survival mode, just trying to navigate out of a separation, and what they've got to know when to apply. It's craziness.
I think 13 weeks out of separation, if you can walk down and just
not be crying,
have your right shoes on and just some sort of outward looking at your overall, that's enough.
Yeah.
That is enough, let alone this system.
Yeah. I want to read another post that I got this week. And I think it really sums up a lot of what I see in my community. So she said, just this weekend, I joined 2 Australian Facebook groups for women receiving child support. The posts are horrendous. The stories are so similar. Dads avoiding child support by lowering their income by the thousands. Over and over again, I kept scrolling and seeing these posts. Not many good outcomes and extremely disheartening. Some women owed over $50,000. I'm currently owed nothing. And I'm seething at the injustice of Child Support Australia accepting his outrageous new adjusted income. I'm not going to bother lodging an objection after reading through the posts of Facebook groups I joined. It just seems too stressful. I received probably 50 or more messages of women for a multitude of reasons. For some, it was just peace. For some, they knew it would rile up their ex-partner and it wasn't worth the abuse. For some, it was just trauma. They couldn't enter back into a push-pull dynamic. And so many women are throwing up their hands and saying, I'm just not even going to bother. I'm not even going to put it on the table. And I think it's really sad because I'm sure you can answer this, but like, who pays the price for making that choice?
Well, I did that myself, and I've never reconciled that question. So when my boy hit the double digits at 10, he was really taking on board his dad's annoyance of child support. Like, he was saying things like, Mum, do we have to do it because Dad, what is it? And Dad's really grumpy about it. So I stopped it because, well, first of all, it was a really crap amount. So
wasn't worth
it made no difference to me. It was such a small amount. But when my son became a broke uni student, and he was working all these extra shifts and trying to get some money together, so maybe he would get, one of those cars that could go some distance before it sort of started blowing a lot of smoke. I thought then, if I'd kept that really crappy amount, would that have made a difference? So first of all, to the women who are saying it's just like the culture and the stigma and the work is too hard, and I'm hearing stories from other women. I understand that. I'm really hoping that if they are listening, that knowing that we had the first changes in child support announced in May of 2026 that were through the lens of women and kids and looking at safety and equity since the child support came into play in 1988. I hope that just warms their heart a little and just and the changes, because I always say you could just hold up a dartboard, throw a dart, and wherever it landed on the child support system, you would land on something that was broken. So I'm not shying away from how big the job is, and that for every gain that we make, I'm so aware that there's so much more to do. But for the first time, we have a feeling of permission that we can talk about it.
Which you feel like we've never had before?
We've never had it. So we've never had it. So although I've been around policy and national policy for a long time before I got into Single Mother Families Australia, and I was deputy president of ACOS. And so I was at these really pointy ends, and there was never any discussion on child support. It was always, how can we reduce the burden for the blokes? That was the dynamic. So we've got something, and there was I think really three moments for me that I would love to share, that I knew that these changes were coming. I got the phone call a few days before budget lockup, and
was this in May?
Yes, it was. So budget lockup is, so when the budget is delivered, people who are watching it on TV or will see the Treasurer give his speech. While he's doing that, there's a group of us, if we get the invite, we will be in rooms where we've handed up our phone and our smartwatch so we can't talk to the outside world, but we have the budget papers, and as soon as the Treasurer's finished, we that's where you see people do those mad congos of press. They jump in the spotlight, and we're all like deer in the headlights, and we're saying our bit, hoping, that someone will pick it up. But I went into budget lockup, and I had these papers, and they're sort of almost small books, and I opened it up, and I sat there, Rachel, and I just caught my breath, because here was child support written about in the way that I wanted it framed, that was talking about for the best for the kids, for returning the steering wheel of negativity and nastiness. And I just read it, and I'm like, oh my God. And here was these fabulous women's groups who are always a few steps away from me because they don't deal with poverty and safety, like the chief executive women, for example. I was briefing them because child support was the headline act in the women's budget. Then I read the Treasurer's speech, and right at the end, the Treasurer mentioned child support. And there's a story behind that. So I was literally running in Parliament House because I had a meeting. I knew I really wanted to catch my flight, but I ring every minute and every second out of Parliament House, and sometimes I have those side meetings. So I've got a pass that allows me to walk around. It is gold because the amount of MPs that I can just try and settle up to. I was running down this corridor. The Treasurer was coming out. He had his books. He was deep in budget preparation. He had his staffers around him. And I went, Treasurer, jumped in front of him. I have just briefed the most amazing Labor women, the Labor caucus on child support. I'm feeling it in my bones. I'm feeling something can happen. If we get something up, will you please say something, because this is national signalling. This will give a sense that here we are, the Treasurer is saying something about child support. He was just like, Terese, I'm really late for a meeting, but I will think about it. And I knew I was losing him. His eyes were glazing over, and I said, can I come and meet with you? Can I convince you? What do I have to do? And he's just like inching away from me, like, please, staffers. And so when I read that, I was like, yes, this is incredible. And then the other thing that happened is Single Mother Families Australia, we were invited with the Minister for Social Services and the Minister, that's Tanya Plibersek, and Minister Gallagher, who holds the portfolio for women and finance. We were invited to do a joint press release with them. That is really unusual. And so we had two amazing women who came and spoke, and they were fabulous. We did it in a park. We done a print interview with the Canberra Times. I was down the bottom of the park, and I went running up to get my phone because I was going to take some behind the shots pictures. And then I watched the government car come up, and not only did we have the Minister for Women, the Minister for Finance, a Minister for DSS. We then had Jed Carney from Melbourne, the Assistant Minister for Family and Domestic Violence. Then we had the local member, Alicia Payne, and I watched these 4 ministers come up and greet us, greet our women, just embrace. They were there. They were there. They weren't shying away from this. They were making a big deal out of this announcement. And then just when I didn't think it would get any better, the Treasurer gets out.
Wow.
And he was there to support his colleagues. And he saw me. Again, I don't know where I was, Rachel, but I was running towards him and he's got this paper and he's waving it to me and he's going, Terese, I'm just here for a quick meeting. I just
He's like, go away.
He was. And so I said, just a picture. And Alicia was quick enough to grab my phone, which is never locked, and just went tick. And we're both leaning in. I said, there you go, Treasurer, you're leaning into child support. So that was just so, I think I talk about these reforms as my foot is through the door. And in the budget papers, it said it's the start of the reforms. But my last bit that I want to tell the women who are listening through you is there is Future Women's do a great post-budget dinner. I always feel privileged. I snag a ticket. It's very fancy, so I snag a free ticket. And it's several hundred people there, and it's sort of the who's who of women there. The Minister for Women and Finance, who was delivering the keynote speech, she acknowledged child support. She says, I'm now going to go back. And she went into how proud she is about starting to make the changes around child support. And she acknowledged me in that room. So there is, it is more than a feeling. You get a gut feeling. It's more than that. We have some evidence that some things are going to change.
So what is going to change? Like if we're looking at some of the stories where these women are talking about tens of thousands owed, is there going to be meaningful change? Is it that you project it's coming? But what will women notice that will be different?
Yeah. So first up, so these changes, so to make that for the announcements to turn into law, they get brought into legislation in Parliament. It's expected to go in 2 pieces, one in the middle of September, one at the end of November. Then the Governor-General, she signs it off and then it becomes law and rules. So one of the big changes that I'm super keen for is where the blokes are pay-AYE. So when they're –
what does that mean?
Where they pay tax, they're not a self –
Yes.
Yeah. There is a rule where the garnishing of wages is going to be king. So if you're not self-employed, wherever it can happen, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
The ATO have not been only charged with a responsibility, but they've been set targets and given some money to actually start prosecuting the blokes who don't lodge a tax return. Bingo. That is so important. We are, as I said, we're doing the information. There is going to be greater encouragement. We're flipping where women end up. Greater knowledge and encouragement for women to start in agency collect.
Yeah.
And then if they want to move, they'll be doing that with some knowledge, absolute knowledge.
All the awareness to make that decision.
Absolutely. So that's the start. The other big thing that's happening, so I really want women, if women are in private collect and they're wanting to move across to agency collect, I would love them to hold on, please hold on, because the other rule that's going to come into play is when they move across, it'll be more than that crappy 3 months.
Right. So how long are they holding on to do that?
It should be all things being equal, and may I let you know, because
Yes,
I don't
absolutely.
have full control of this.
So just hold on for now.
Hold on,
Yeah.
but it should be either the 1st of January next year or the 1st of July next year.
Okay.
Because the changes are coming in 2 bits of legislation, I won't know which ones are first, but I will come back to you and let you know. So please hold on, because
So do not move from
do
private
not
collects
move.
yet.
Keep your records.
Yeah.
Become a mini detective.
Yeah.
Keep all your records. So when it does happen,
You've got
you'll
that
get
information.
what's owing to you.
What about, because with these changes, it's great if they're an employee, but I feel like a lot of these situations, they're self-employed, it's money hidden in tax, they're clever.
Yep.
So what about these people that are self-employed? How are we going to?
Again, no promise. But the commitment from the government, because that is more tricky. So that requires legislation across a lot of departments. And it's not only that, it's trust. So at the moment, you can stick your money in a trust, no one can touch it. Stick it in a super,
Assets?
no one can touch it. Yes. So that takes a bit more work. So we are working in good faith with the government, understanding that will be the 2027 announcement. So that just needed a bit more work. I know that when I was talking to the Assistant Treasurer, they're going to put me into a few of the government groups. So on a few government groups at the moment where I talk about child support and bring that lens. This will be in with Treasury when we're talking about the minimisation, the loopholes, the easy out.
Yeah.
Much tougher, but not impossible. So that's what we're ramping up for next year.
Amazing. I mean, one of my final questions, but I think I get the vibe that you're hopeful, right?
Yeah, I am. I really am. I have to, well, first of all, I have to be. So I say that with a great dose of humour, but
you feel it. You said
am.
I feel it.
I am so hopeful. So the other, just if I roll back, I was really fortunate enough to be appointed onto the Women's Economic Equality Task Force. The chair of that task force is now our Governor-General, and there was 13 women, all representing different groups. I was representing South Australia. There are so many groups who are now on my side. I feel
it's not alone. You're not alone in it anymore.
No, I feel we've prosecuted such a damn good argument. And the other bit is the government has brought in an audit of government systems, which sounds really dry, but it excites me through to my toes because it looks at every system where it's really harming women. And I got into Parliament House, and we got child support to be the first one. There's some other shitty systems. And so that's just starting. That work is just starting. So I'm on that committee, and we're about to have the second meeting. So, we've got government systems going in the right direction. We've got the NGOs and women's groups going in the right direction. And we've got women, even if they are cheering us on from 50 steps away, or if they're writing to me or you anonymously, they're speaking up. So we've got a point in time, and I know it's a point in time because I've lived those dark times. So I can tell the difference, and we're in a purple patch. And all I can say to women is I'm so there to make a change on child support. So there.
What can women do to support you? Like, obviously, I think I said it offline, but most women wanted to write anonymously. Obviously, there's a fear of publicly sharing their story, but how can women support you to do your work?
So at the moment, the key way of interacting with me is on our Facebook page. That is going to get a little bit more sophisticated because we've got a little bit more money. So we will be having some newsletters, etc., and we will be exploring a whole raft of social media platforms. At the moment, it's on our Facebook page where women will get to participate in their surveys, which goes through university, which they now know that we launch in Government House, in Parliament House, in the media. We connect. And of course, every point of contact with me can be anonymous. Those surveys can be anonymous. They're set up in a way that you can skip one question. It is as transparent as what we can make it. Women who want to speak in the media, and I'm talking like may want to give a first-hand account to, they don't have to have a picture taken. They don't have to be identified. That's another way of doing it. Women who want to hear what we're up to, that behind-the-scenes stuff, just if it makes them, just gives a little bit, like if a little bit of sun shining through the rain, that is really important. So that's our main way at the moment. But as I said, we're in the next couple of months, some more ways of engaging is going to happen.
I will put all of the links where people can directly share their stories and be able to help support you. But I guess I just want to finish and just acknowledge you for all the work that you do. I mean, people see the videos and the photos with these ministers, but I don't think they really know the work that you must put into this and the heart and soul. And I don't know why it's making me emotional. But
me too.
You're the voice for so many women. And
Rachel, I understand what you're saying. When I was in a room full of people who are really high-powered, and, I was going through this, my own footprint, and even though I don't show it outwardly, sometimes I go, oh my God, I've got imposter syndrome. Like these are the movers and shakers in Australia. And so to be called out in that, I actually walked back from Parliament House to my hotel late that night. It was a cold winter night, as it always is in Canberra, just for the emotions to go through my body, because I know what it means for women. Like I see them, I hear them. And so if it just helps one woman when she's in the shower crying, because that will drown out the noise, and that's a little bit shorter or a bit more infrequent, it just spurs me on to no end. So thank you, because I feel it. And when I got told in 2023, after working for over 15 years every year to try and make a change on parenting payment single, and each year it was a no, and it was a no, and it was a no. When we got it up, I just sat and cried. And I still do when I think about it. So I understand the emotion. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, and I'm sure it's helping a lot more than one. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time. And I'll share all of the resources, all of where they can find you, and as much as we can help support you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.